The recording. Ed, does it all look like everything's recording?
Yes, I just noticed, I don't know if anyone doesn't save their insiders, but the link to this was not in this week's insider.
Oh, hmm. I didn't notice that. But the link was in the weekly email, I believe.
I
Right.
thought, yeah.
Okay, so we should be okay. Anyway, good morning to everyone. Like I said, I hope everyone who
Or
is
the weekly email.
has voted already, if not
Hmm.
planning to do so. I've been voting by mail ever since I was sick. They keep sending me the vote by mail, so I just fill it out. It's a lot easier.
We
Um,
had to vote a little bit later because they closed the rec center here because of a bomb threat
really?
Oh,
That
wow.
happened this morning?
this morning at 9 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
So it was
That's
closed.
a major voting place, not yes?
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sima, were you also supposed to vote there also?
No, I vote right across the street.
Oh,
Very
okay.
convenient. I just,
Yeah. Okay.
I've got the
Late.
elementary school right across the
Yeah,
street,
you're
literally.
right there. Okay, I hope that, well, let's
There
hope
were other
everyone
places too, Patterson, Middlesex, there were a number of them around New Jersey.
Oh, my
had
goodness.
bomb threats.
Oh, my
Yeah,
So what
there
did you
goodness.
was,
have to do, Ed?
Pardon?
So what did you have to do?
Well, I called the police and asked when they'd be open, and they said they were open by 9:30. So
Oh, okay,
it was only closed for about a
fair
half.
enough.
uh,
Okay, so we're going to start. We are finishing today. I would think the one of the issues about being an ethical consumer, and one of the well, we focused on buying clothing, and we looked at various texts, and we're going to take a look also at some of the other issues of being an ethical consumer. And then we're going to talk a little. We will begin to talk about Judaism and medicine. We did at one point go over some texts on vaccines. That was a number of years ago. Some of them are worth revisiting. And when we start looking at Judaism and medicine, I also want to start by we'll have a few texts to look at just to clarify the question of Judaism and prayer for healing. Right. We'll see a major teshuvah says, why don't we just pray for healing? But I'd like to expand upon that and talk a little bit more about uh, what prayer for healing means and how that works, and also an interesting teshuvah we'll take a look at.
Cheese.
Uh, Something that rabbis and congregations worry about is how long should a name be on the refuah shlema list at the synagogue? Some synagogues have lists that are extremely long, and some rabbis have asked
He
questions.
replied to everybody.
I'm sorry, Eddie.
No, I'm sorry. I was looking at something else.
Okay, so we'll take a look at some of those issues and then talk about vaccines and health and that'll be our next unit. So let us begin. Carol, you're going in and out of our view there. I don't know if your computer's. Oh, there you are. Okay. I don't know if it was your computer or something else was going on there. All right. So I want to start by taking a look at let's see, number 8, which is this one. This whole question. We've looked at various views about how one could try at least. And we recognize that it is not as easy a question. You do want to buy things ethically. And I've been starting to notice, and I know Ed sent me something about tea, and you can notice on some products the questions of whether they were ethically produced. Particularly, you might notice that on chocolates, which has a real problem with the supply chain because of the way that they are grown and harvested. Tea that I noticed, by the way, my company, Republic of Tea, some of its teas are also indicated that they're concerned about the ethics of how they're planted, harvested, and so on. So let's take a look at another general view. This is from something that we've seen before. The rabbi who is answering this. Let me make it a little bit larger here. How's that? Everybody have to see the text? Okay, it's up there. Right. This is Rabbi Dr. Asher Meir Business Ethics Center for Jerusalem. Very well-known rabbi. He actually he published a book that we've looked at before, and he has written extensively on this question of ethical issues in our lives. And here's one that touches on the topic that we're talking about, which he says very simply: is it ethical to buy from low-wage suppliers? Okay, that's the real question we're asking. So he begins with the question: many consumer products are made in third world countries in sweatshop conditions. Is buying these products exploiting the workers? Or perhaps it is actually helping them because it provides them with work and gives them a chance to improve living conditions. What about the effect on local workers? So notice even the nature of the question itself is not just, okay, are they being made in sweatshops? This is a question that we'll see. I'll take a look at a little bit more detail. Is it helping them because it provides them work and gives them a chance to improve living conditions? So we'll take a look at that. And what about the effect on local workers? You know, one could argue that by purchasing in certain large retailers, that has an effect on local workers. See what Rabbi Asher Meir says. So the foreign sweatshop debate has raged for generations. The foreign, not to mention of course, the sweatshops within the United States, which still exist in some places, which still are, as you periodically see raids, particularly in New York, in California. Organized labor has traditionally demanded better working conditions, not only in the home country, but also abroad. Cynics have complained that the demand is really a way of fending off low-cost foreign competition, which benefits consumers, right? In other words, you don't want the low-cost competition, and low-cost competition is good for consumers. Okay. So where does he begin? Notice, he says, and when you sell something to your fellow or buy from the hand of your fellow, don't exploit each one his brother. Now, it's interesting he begins with this text. We've seen in other cases, let's think about those peppers from Malabar. The question was, am I encouraging sinning? Remember, there was the question of by buying from someone who I know there is some stealing or heavy hand on the weight, some improper morally actions taking place along the lines. Am I encouraging sinning? Here he uses as his key verse, don't exploit each one his brother. Now, he will try to carefully look at this verse because notice it says don't exploit. It could have ended there, right? Had the verse ended there, we say, oh, don't exploit. But we also have the thought, each one his brother, which he will look at. Okay. The simple meaning is we shouldn't exploit each other in commerce by charging an unfair price. Fair enough. But Rashi's commentary points out the verse contains an implicit mandate. When we sell, we should preferably sell to our fellow. When we buy, we should buy from our fellow. Now he's saying, now I'm not saying this is the absolute way of interpreting this verse, but he says if we go with Rashi, Rashi is going to emphasize each one his brother. That maybe this verse is talking about something more locally. Okay. In a previous column, we explained that this preference both provides the livelihood for community members and also builds a feeling of connection and solidarity among members of a particular community. Don't we have, what is that, buy local Saturday weekend or something? This is a national event where the question is, should we intentionally buy in our communities because the verse is telling us we should support local purveyors of goods, okay? Obviously, this would sound to me like an anti-Amazon.
How can you do that?
How can you do that? That's a great question. For example, I'll tell you, I don't buy books from Amazon anymore. How do I do it? I spend more money. I actually spend more money for purchase. I don't buy that. I'll be honest, I don't buy as many books as I used to, but I still buy books. But I don't buy them from Amazon. I like the idea that there's a local bookseller somewhere. So I buy books from my local bookseller. I will admit there's a lot of other stuff. Come on, let's be honest. I buy a lot of stuff from Amazon.
Rabbi,
Yes.
if you buy stuff that's made in sweatshops overseas, not only are you causing another problem, you causing jobs of your fellow people here.
Okay. The question is, you're asking, are we therefore encouraging the elimination of local jobs?
Right.
Well, that's a good question. How we should deal with that, I think is a valid question. Can certain things still be made in America? I mean, we're debating that nationally now, right? Tariffs, can they make, if they made it, right? Certain items are made overseas, and we may or may not be able to make them here.
I'm just commenting on Rashi's
Yes.
comment.
Right. Preference for local.
Right.
Okay. Most authorities have stated we should even pay a premium in order to do business with fellow community members, thus making economic relations complement social ones. How much more am I willing to pay for a book by buying it from my local bookstore than I am from buying it? Okay, couple bucks. Yeah, I'm willing to do that. But we know that you're not going to buy a car or, let's face it, a phone, right? You're not going to buy your phone because the question of how much it would cost, the cost of, there is a point where the cost differentiation becomes a deterrent, right? We all know that. So okay. So what does he say? So interesting, he says, the first thing he asks, the critical question, although I may not disagree with this, becomes, who is my fellow? My neighbor, my fellow citizen, any fellow human being? In past generations, this question was easy to answer because both practically and emotionally, mutual awareness of concern could exist only those who are close by. If you lived certainly in the pre-modern age, you were not worried about buying extensive amounts of things that were produced far from where you lived. You did buy some, but not to the degree we have today, right? In the age of globalization, many people believe it's practical and obligatory to view all human beings as our fellows. Now I'm not just worrying about the guy on River Road in Fairlawn who has a little business. I'm worrying about everyone around the world. Others worry that this approach carries the danger that existing functional community relations will be weakened in favor of the still hypothetical community of man, resulting in the loss of all communal concern. When you have fewer community-owned businesses, that creates a social problem, is what he's saying. Okay. And by the way, we know there were fewer community-owned businesses. That is just, the globalization has caused that. Presumably, what we need is a concentric set of communal relationships, each one on a suitable scale. It is practical for everyone to be concerned with world ecology and global warming, which are truly global problems. A free loan society for neither individuals in a small neighborhood is practical, but it would be hard to administer one which serves an entire region. Fair enough. But then he goes on. So that's, the question is, all right, certain things we could buy locally. If you believe that consumers in advanced countries can create genuine empathy and solidarity with sweatshop workers in East Asia, then considering these distant individuals our fellows, then it is definitely appropriate for you to take steps, including consumer activism, to promote better working conditions for these workers. I have to, anyone want to react to that sentence? I have a certain problem with that sentence. If you believe that consumers in advanced countries can create genuine empathy and solidarity with sweatshop workers in East Asia, considering these distant individuals are fellows, then it is definitely appropriate for you to take steps, including consumer activism, to promote working conditions for those workers. Anyone have a problem with any part of that sentence? Okay, this is how I have to say, I have a little problem with this. If, in other words, it's only conditional that I should have empathy and solidarity with sweatshop workers in East Asia. In other words, he's saying that, well, maybe you can feel good about the guys and people in Bangladesh, but maybe you don't, right? Maybe the people who are working in the sweatshops in Bangladesh, I'm taking that example, or I don't know, Indonesia, where a lot of now of course now Vietnam, where a lot of clothing is manufactured, shoes and things of that nature. Here's the question: is creating empathy and solidarity with sweatshop workers in East India, is that conditional? That's the question I have.
Mm-hmm.
So it
See,
sounds
that's what he's
optional.
suggesting. It's a condition, it's conditional. Some people feel empathy for the sweatshop workers, some people don't. If you don't feel empathy for them, buy whatever you want. Yeah. Comments?
Yeah, it's optional.
That's what he's saying. I have difficulty with that. I would hope that we are concerned about some of those sweatshop workers there. I'm not sure why he makes it he makes it conditional, because he's using that part of the verse, who is my fellow. It seems to me he's narrowing it down. Of course, we should take care that our steps don't actually work to the detriment by destroying their livelihood, doing a prolonged boycott, or pricing their goods out of the market. If you feel your first concern should be workers in your own region or country, then you should try when practical to give preference to local manufacturers, even if there's a moderate price difference. See, I don't understand why both could not be true, i.e., I do feel both empathy for those workers, and I do feel concern for my local manufacturers. So those are the things, since I feel both, I do have to balance those. Maybe not perfectly, but that's the way I look at it. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I don't, how do we really know if it's a sweatshop situation? We don't really know what we're buying from what manufacturing facility. So like, how do you really judge not to buy something or boycott it? It's like, you don't really know the conditions of, supposedly they're supposed to have changed a lot of that, but what do we know and how do we really know?
This is a very difficult problem, right? In other words, there are certain, like I said, Ed sent me this document from a company that sells tea. And I know I see this also on some of the tea that I buy, Republic of Tea, where there is certain certification about the
Right.
workers being treated fairly. But if you
Right.
walk into any large department store, clothing department, or the fast fashion, remember we used the fast fashion was a good example. How do you know for sure? And Simmer, you're right, we don't know. Unless there's some sort of certification, right?
Rabbi,
That's not going to be on clothing, that's for sure. Well, sometimes a tag can say something. I'm going to go look at something I buy. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay,
It also says something.
we'll wait for Simmer to get back. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Rabbi,
Yes, please.
there are many things you can't, even if you want to, you cannot buy American made.
Correct.
If you buy, you can't get a television that's made in the United States.
Correct. Can't get a cell phone. Electronics, you can't get a camera.
So
right?
the problem is a much bigger one.
Right. Computers. So all these computers that we're looking at right now. Economically, we can't compete. Okay. Simmer, did you find something?
Yeah, it says, it has this little symbol on it that says, oops, I don't know if you can see it. This thing right here, whoops.
Okay,
says
what does it say on it?
It says fair trade. And I think that that's what that represents. I looked it up a while ago, but I think that that's what that represents, that it was made
Right.
not by sweatshop sort of situation, because
Yes.
it's cacao, and cacao is made in countries that do maybe employ workers in the wrong way.
Okay. Are you talking about a chocolate?
This happens to be, I buy the niblets and this is just the powder
Okay, yes.
form.
Chocolate is a particularly difficult issue because the harvesting of the chocolate has been done in the past by people who are living very close to slave labor. Yes, young children and things of that nature. In the chocolate industry, yes,
Yes.
there's no question about fair trade being an issue.
Right, so all the packages that I buy of the niblets and also the powder all say fair trade on them, so.
It's an
Did
order.
you
It's
buy
made-
them because they said fair trade?
No, I learned it. I hadn't bought one in quite a while and I decided to start doing the dark chocolate thing again because I had stopped. And this says cacao, fair trade certified and sourced from fair trade producers. That's what it says
Okay,
on the back
so
of it.
there's an area where consumer demand has had some effect. I know
Right.
there's fair trade chocolates for
Okay.
Pesach. I bought them one year.
You-
I didn't like the way they tasted.
Rabbi,
This is
Rabbi
made in
Saltzman used to get them
Peru.
out.
So I stopped buying chocolate for Pesach. Okay, Eddie and then Rini.
Yeah, Rabbi Salston, years ago, she was
Yes.
sending out the little chocolates,
Yes,
fair trade, the dark chocolate. But
right.
it's a big organization. There's several of them that will supposedly research and certify that it's fair traded.
Right. That's one industry where you can sometimes see a difference. Okay, Rini, you're
Well,
gonna
there's also fair trade coffee.
yes.
And also there's a store, I don't know if it's a chain, it might be called, I think 10,000 Villages.
Yes, it's they had some retail stores at one point. I've actually shopped in their retail stores. Yes.
Right. And I think they pride themselves on all their products being made by people who get a living wage.
Yes. Okay. But there's still a limited selection
Yes, that's right.
of merchandise. Yes, Ed.
Another one of the big ones is I think there's some kind of mark on it, but there are fair traded diamonds. They certify
Oh.
that they're
Yes.
not blood diamonds.
Yes.
Ah.
Blood diamonds, as
That's
some
a big one.
may know, diamonds can come from a country where in incredibly terrible working conditions. That's a whole other. I won't even go into the question as to what's the real value of diamonds, but that's we
Yeah.
can talk about that some other time. The supply is kept artificially low, and the demand is pushed up by advertising. But that's another story. But you're right. There are certain. There's a limited number of items available to purchase that are
Right.
verifiably fair traded. Correct.
Right.
As far as
Uh,
the diamonds go now, the laboratory diamonds have really knocked the price of real diamonds down significantly.
That's correct. We assume that yes, laboratory diamonds, I understand, are almost indistinguishable from natural diamonds at this point.
I just bought Carol last year. I bought her Carol earrings, and the guy behind the counter said he needs a special machine to tell the difference.
Now,
Okay.
Carol, now you know those aren't real diamonds.
No, she was in the store, and I gave
Oh.
her a choice. And let me tell you, this is a choice between $3,500 and $12,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, so
My
I'm not gonna-
daughter's
not gonna-
engagement ring is also lab grown, and you can get a much larger diamond that way.
yeah.
It was her choice, and I'm not going to tell you which one she chose.
Okay, we won't ask. All right, but the point is that, my hope from this class is that we're thinking about these ethical issues, and there is beginning in at least some part of the marketplace. And I'm going to take a look at this before we finish today, where there have been attempts to make it a larger part of the marketplace. Now, what is the wrap? Let's finish here. In a way, both the stated cynical understanding of labor groups have relevant. In other words, are labor groups just trying to protect their own jobs? If we do share a sense of community, now I really have to tell you, what really bothers me is this if. He makes it so conditional. Share a sense of community or worker solidarity with sweatshop workers in distant lands, then we should be concerned with their working conditions and not exploit them. But why is it conditional? I can understand if you could say, gee, it's really hard to do this. But since we do feel a sense of solidarity, we should do the best we can when we're purchasing things, right? If we don't share a sense of a community with them, we should try to give preference to local workers who are our fellows. Well, I don't understand why he doesn't say we should give preference to our locals, but we should also be concerned with the people who are in the sweatshops. I have to say that I had some great difficulty with this with his ethic. Usually I have a great I agree with him, but here I think he's cutting things a bit finer, and I don't understand the conditionality. But he does end very well. Our aspiration should be for economic relations that harmonize with communal ones. We should engage in buying and selling with our fellows and avoid exploiting them. And I think we also said that our fellows should be everyone. When practical, we should either display concern for the workers who made our goods or buy goods from those workers for whom we can effectively display concern. Okay, a little conditionality there. I mean, it's true. It's not easy. I'm going to admit it's not easy. Okay, so there have been some attempts to do this in different places. 11. Right. Oh, this is. So, for example, I just found a few examples about attempts to Jewish groups trying to see ethical consumerism, which is really I think we're not just talking about clothing. This is from the Reform Action Religious Action Center from Judaism. The Reform movement has a history of standing up for social justice around the world. Interesting here, they take it for granted. It's not conditional. Everyone around the world should be concerned. And fighting to end global poverty, human rights abuses, and environmental destruction. So the Reform movement said in 2002, promote the consumption of fair trade coffee. The union has passed multiple resolutions to curb environmental destruction. We ask that all congregations, union offices, and individuals strive to purchase and serve fair trade coffee and provide educational materials on the benefit of this practice. They said this group has committed to purchasing fair trade coffee for office use and is currently working to offer fair trade coffee exclusively at our future events. So here's one. Yeah, I mean, yes, you could say this is very small. On the other hand, I think it's an important statement saying that they as the Reform movement should emphasize ethical consumerism. There are a couple of other examples that have been there. I want to give you two other examples of ethical consumerism. Something that the conservative movement has tried in terms of ethical consumerism. Well, we'll see. Okay. Some years ago, there was a concern for ethics greater ethics in the kosher meat business. So there was a rabbi who established something what he called Magen Tzedek, an ethical certification for kosher food. You may recall the scandal at one of the larger kosher slaughtering houses about 10 or 12 years ago. And they wanted to, the mission of the Magen Tzedek Commission is to bring Jewish commitment to ethics and social justice directly into the marketplace and the home. Precisely what we've been talking about. This was for kosher food. And it's a long document. It's 20 pages or so. I'm not going to go through it. I'll just want to take a look at the headings. The goal had been to say, well, you have your various signs of kosher, Chav K, OU, and so on. But we want to start something new, and we'll put this mark, Magen Tzedek, this mark, on food products, and it's over there as well. And we would certify them. Why? Because they followed certain rules. Labor practices, now we've already talked about that, and that's particularly true and difficult in the garment industry, as we've seen. But here in the kosher slaughtering, a lot of kosher slaughterhouses are located far from urban. Well, the invention of refrigeration meant that the slaughterhouses didn't have to be in Chicago, right? They didn't have to ship the cattle to Chicago, and because they couldn't refrigerate the meat very quickly, they had to move it fast. But now with refrigeration, the slaughterhouses are all over the place, usually rural areas, and often employing large numbers of recent immigrants. So there's a question of labor practices, health and safety, child labor, forced labor, animal welfare, consumer issues, safety recalls, corporate integrity, legal. In other words, that you want to deal with a company that is working well, and environmental impact. The waste products from animal. From not just the slaughterhouse, but from the places where the animals are raised, is tremendous. Waste reduction, supply chain, environment improvement, energy efficiency, alternative, in other words, all carbon water, all sorts of, and they went into great details. The kosher food industry has become an important part of the American food industry. It is estimated 40% of packaged foods in America. I did not know that. And that's amazing. The focus on kosher standards has been solely the work of Jewish laws of kashrut. But there they say the primary goal is comprehensive ethical certification for retail food products, and to establish an exemplary level of social justice expectations for kosher food. So it's not just whether or not the animal was slaughtered properly, but you saw all the different rules, and he has. And then they have, I'm not going to read this, labor practices, as we saw, labor practices, go down, and animal welfare, consumer issues, and all sorts of stuff. So this was started about 12 or 15 years ago. With a lot of fanfare that this is an opportunity for the conservative movement to get into this product, into this space.
Rabbi?
Yes.
We keep kosher at home, but I've never seen that mark on anything we buy.
And now I'm going to tell you why. Okay. This is 2013. Magen Tzedek, ethical kosher seal, stalled, okay, amid Orthodox opposition, right? This is the, remember the kosher slaughterhouse, and this is the Rabbi Morris Morris Allen, who was the head of this. And someone said, when I look to see what they do, I don't see very much there at the moment. It's a bit of a disappointment. Ed, you are correct. What happened? This article was written in 2013, so that's already 12 years ago. 5 years after the federal government's largest ever immigration raid exposed rampant worker abuse at the country's biggest kosher slaughterhouse, Magen Tzedek, which was meant to respond to the scandal, appears hardly more active today than Agripasa when that plant was shut down. There is little evidence that the project has capitalized on the calls the scandal sparked for ethically created kosher food. Sad but true. He predicted in 2010 he would have many companies. I've been burned too often. Magen remains a dream. There is a wariness towards the seal on the part of the kosher meat producers. Some are concerned that they will lose their heksher, traditional kosher seal, that require Orthodox certification and agencies if they sign on with Magen Tzedek. In other words, Orthodoxy opposed it. In theory, it's great. But The primary market is Orthodox consumers who want the highest standard of kashrut, which is glatt kosher meat. Again, glatt kosher meat just means that there is an extreme a severity in the rules of kashrut that came into the United States after World War II about certain lesions in the lungs of slaughtered animals. Glatt means, right, Yiddish experts, smooth. So it's just about whether or not there are certain lesions which allow it to be kosher, but to be glatt kosher, and the lungs have to be even smoother. And what has happened today, of course, is that the word glatt has become to mean, oh, this is really kosher, as opposed to the non-glatt isn't really kosher, as opposed to its original meaning. Okay. Referring to the Orthodox Union, the OU, this is someone who produces kosher meat. We can't do anything without the approval of the OU. The OU contract says that the meat producers are required to get OU approval before signing on with any additional agencies. You can't have another symbol without checking with the OU. So in other words, the way the business works is that even if people wanted the Magen Tzedek, they were in danger of losing OU. And of course, losing OU would mean economic disaster. Yeah, Rini.
Why couldn't you have both?
Well, that's a good question. We're going to take a look at that.
Oh, sorry.
Good question. That's the exact question. Now, someone said, this is Rabbi Genick, who is the head of the OU kashrut department. If there's a company that wants to use Magen Tzedek, we will not object to appearing on the label. We would not object to putting the word halal on their label. These are marketing decisions, okay? But others in the Orthodox movement, Agudat Israel of America, and ultra-Orthodox, deplored the group as an attempt to redefine kashrut, calling the seal a falsification of the Jewish religious heritage, i.e., saying a meat is kosher only means that it was slaughtered properly, that the animal was examined properly, and the meat was handled properly after it was slaughtered. In other words, kashrut certification only has to do with the legality of the slaughtering process and the handling process after the slaughtering. That's it. So one group within the Orthodox world said that's what kosher means, as opposed to Magen Tzedek saying, well, we want to put a seal on it that says not only did you do all of that, but you have operated your business in an ethical way. Now, we'll see. Okay. This is Morris Allen, who's the head of this. Allen said that another prospective client told him that his shochet, the ritual slaughterer, would be pulled if he continued discussions with the Magen Tzedek. Well, what is happening? The powers against us are unbelievable. There are attacks on us just because we come from a different part of the Jewish people, and that should be of great concern. This is a conservative Jewish thing. If it's a conservative Jewish thing, you can't, muscle in. By the way, he doesn't say this in this article, but it has been said in other forums about this. The kosher meat business and the use of the hechshers is not necessarily the most ethical business in the world. Let's just leave it at that, okay? The current standards includes, requirements. And the question is also, here's somebody who does produce kosher meat. We have about 6, small producer, and there's only so much money I can spend on compliance. In other words, it's true. What happens when having to prove that you're doing all the things to make yourself ethical costs so much that your product is non-competitive? Okay, Rini?
If these people, I have issues with some comments of the Orthodox right, but if they're so um, feeling so superiorly Jewish or whatever, then they should be concerned about ethics, not just concerned about money and their business. They should be. So it bothers me because, I mean, we live right near a farm, and around Sukkot, it's extremely popular. A lot of very Orthodox Jews come from Lakewood and Brooklyn, and
Well, yeah,
they pick apples, but they eat apples in the field before they've paid for them. So is that ethical? These are supposed to
yeah.
be. So that's why I have a problem with this, because everyone should be ethical.
Yeah, there should be ethical but here you have clearly one group that was saying the symbol of kashrut only is about the slaughtering process. Now, I think we've seen and we've noted even in that last text we had, there are questions of interpretation, and yes, in the question of should our ethics influence our how we are as a consumer. I think for this, I would say yes. And here is a group that's saying, well, we want to extend those ethics to the kosher slaughtering business, but people in the kosher slaughtering business say, we're don't muscle in. We say everything is fine by halacha, and that's all we're going to say. And also the fact that this is from a conservative movement, which you should know, in many parts of the Orthodox world, there is little, if no, respect for the conservative movement.
Oh, yes, of course.
So, yeah. Although he did, one thing that did happen, Empire Kosher's website prominently features a section on its homepage that lists its socially responsible methods, which Alan said was influenced by the Magen Tzedek Center. So maybe it had some influence, but the bottom line was you couldn't get a toehold. Why don't you see it, Ed? Because the certain groups in the Orthodox movement said, no, you can't do this. We're gonna pull our hector if you try to put this one on here. That's what happened. And so that's why you don't see it.
Is it possible they were afraid that they may have been overtaken by something like that?
Look, there's all sorts of economic interests here, as you can imagine. Magen Tzedek was not, be very clear, was not saying whether or not the shochet had proper credentials, right? The OU is going to be certain that the shochet, the slaughter, has proper credentials, right? And that when the slaughtering is done, his knife is sharp. He follows the rules about how the slaughter has to be done. Magen Tzedek was saying, we're not in that business. We're just in the business of, are the people in the slaughterhouse being paid properly? Is the company ethically responsible?
Yeah, but down the road, they could have been concerned that they may get into that part, and then they hope.
Well, there may be. Yeah, in other words, did some of the established groups worry that they might not be able to meet those standards? It got a lot of interest and excitement, but unfortunately, it didn't go very far. Yeah,
I think it's all money and power. The Orthodox have a toehold, a real tight hold on the kosher market and a lot of things, because the K isn't always recognized, but UO is always recognized. And it's money and power. So why would they even try to share power? I mean,
yeah.
chocolates can be kosher and delicious and fair traded. That doesn't seem to be a problem, but there's something in the meat processing industry where they don't want to share.
Well, I would argue the chocolate industry has a larger market. It's smaller. The abuses became very public, and that became a big issue. Now, you could argue in the kosher meat processing industry, there are a lot of abuses. It's a good question as to what's going to happen in that industry if every undocumented worker was sent out of this country. We would have a very serious problem in in the kosher in the meat industry altogether. That's
Right.
another issue.
Right.
Last thing I want to show is there have been, so let's not say that this is something that has not been concerned in some ways. And this has come up somewhat local because there are people in Bergen County who put this together. And again, you don't see it that much, but here and there you might see it on a store. An Orthodox group decided to put out the Tav HaYosher. Tav HaYosher, the ethical seal. By the way, they don't call it a hechsher, right? They don't use the word kashrut, but it's a group that the Tav HaYosher ethical seal is certified by Uri Litzedek. That's an Orthodox group. I've quoted them before, who was concerned about the ethics of the marketplace. Kosher restaurants and caterers that ensure safe and just working conditions for their employees, right? This is not so they're not talking about, where did the meat come from, and do we like that meat packing plant because of the shochet we approve of. Similar to the role of traditional kosher certification, the Tav HaYosher ethical seal certifies that a kosher establishment adheres to Torah ethics and treatment of employees. Why? And again, falling on that, going back to that same issue, the questions of you shall not oppress a hired servant, the deprivation of a laborer's wages, to ensure our fulfillment, to follow just labor practices. So they have put this together, and I have seen it on I'll be honest, I'm not sure how far this has gone either. But notice this is an attempt from the Orthodox world to say that we're concerned about what's going on. This is particular to the restaurant and catering industries, which of course in Bergen County, there are more than a few. So all employees minimum wage, hours must be recorded, fair time. In other words, they're talking about, these are simple things, many of which are legally required. Work more than 40 hours, they time and a half as required by law, safe work environment. So they're trying to do this here. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure how far they have gotten, but they are, at least there is still the fact that this even exists should be an indication to us that this is not something that is unknown. So let's try to summarize this. So can you be an ethical consumer? How do you be an ethical consumer? Does it work? Any influence on your buying or consuming habits? Any comment on that before we close the unit? Ed?
Well, I know you said you don't buy your books from Amazon, but I would never buy anything, no matter how much cheaper it is, from Temu,
Right.
the Chinese company that dumps in the United States.
Oh, okay. I have to tell you, I am barely aware of the existence of Temu. I've heard of it. It's not on my computer. It's not on my phone. I understand. I understand what you're saying, Ed, and no, I don't know, barely aware of them.
It's a Chinese equivalent to Amazon.
Right.
But cheaper.
Yeah, there are other ones
Away.
also, aren't there? There's
There's Shane, which mimics
Shane.
and copies. They mimic and copy clothing from other places, and that's what's been brought up about Shane. Temu is like very inexpensive, I'll say, but their products are very cheap. I mean, the quality of their products are very cheap also, some of them. And I feel bad. I agree with you, Ed, 150%, because we're harming our own country and other manufacturers and other people's livelihood by promoting and supporting those two companies. So,
Right.
Okay. But as was pointed out, the counter argument, which I didn't really bring in great detail here, is that there are places where working in these clothing factories, given the economic choices that people have in certain countries, it's a better economic choice than some other things. But when you read some of the people who defend this, I think it's not take seriously that consumers can have an effect. And yeah, there are places where it might be a better economic choice, but we should not try to encourage that. Any other comments or questions before we leave Rini? Yeah.
Well, the fact that we even had a few weeks on this, to present awareness and alternatives, it just gives us all something to think about. And I think it's, good to contemplate what you're buying and from whom and what the impacts are, just as you changed your book buying habits. I buy from the local farm and he's way more expensive than the supermarket, but I'm helping him stay in business and keep a farm here rather than, more houses. So I think the best we can do is to do the best we can with the information and the resources we have.
Yeah. So
It's a
Lee's
global.
right.
Yeah.
You're telling me that Lee's Turkey Farm is still in business.
Oh, as a matter of fact, they are. And Lee's the the next generation is still taking it over. And they've also sold their farm or been bought by the township as permanently green. It will never have houses on it, but as long as they want to continue farming, they will.
Yeah, that's a local farm it's actually in East Windsor or High.
Yeah,
Exactly
it's
where.
right up Dutch Neck Road.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Although I will say this, the local in Bergen County, some of the local nurseries have been going out of business, and the townhouses are being built.
Yeah.
What can I tell
Because the
you?
land's so much more valuable.
As housing.
Yeah, but the land is more valuable to put houses on than to keep a nursery.
That is
Right,
correct.
that's right.
There is at least in our neck of the woods, at least 2 or 3 places where that has recently happened. You wonder how long
Paramus Road.
on
Yeah.
Paramus Road, there are 2.
Victoria's was one of them.
Yeah, right.
And
Well,
the question is,
that's happened here too. But because there are a lot of developments on what were farms, but that particular local farm is still there. Yeah.
Ed?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone buys eggs at the Goffel Road Farm, the chicken farm on Goffel Road
Right.
in Hawth. I think it's
Yeah,
Hawthorne.
that's that. Well, it's sort of where Hawthorne, Ridgewood, and
Yeah, Midland Park.
yeah,
Yes,
those 3 towns kind of join together at one little corner, and there's this place where you can buy eggs. Actually, they sell chickens too, but they're not kosher,
Yeah, I go up there and I buy the eggs there. It's far more expensive than the supermarket, but they're far better quality. You can, when you first get them, you can taste the sweetness of the egg versus what you get in the supermarket. It's worth it. It's worth the trip.
How much
Okay.
is a dozen, Ed, for large eggs?
Well, the super jumbos were $5.50 a dozen.
Were they free range chickens?
No, they don't advertise free range, but they're in Pennsylvania, so is where they come from.
Okay, who knows?
There used to be a farm there. They used to have all kinds of animals there for the kids go and watch them play with.
Years ago, we had Deitch's farm and we had Harold's farm. They were all gone.
Yeah, well, yes.
That's now a Bottle King.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
And houses.
Right. Fairlawn had many farms. Okay, so look, I just hope that we can be more conscious consumers. Check the labels. Might cost a little bit more for certain products. Try to avoid some of these exploitative companies. I'm going to try to be more conscious of it. It's not. I think we understand it's not that easy, but hopefully that over time, some of these things can change. All right, and any other comments? All right, so next week we're going to talk about. We're going to start when we talk about Judaism and medicine, but we'll start this question about Judaism and praying for healing, which I think is part of that too. as then we'll go on to issues about vaccinations and so on. Okay, so everybody, I guess I said, if you voted, good for you. And if you haven't voted,
Yes,
go out and vote.
right.
Bomb threats are over.
Bomb threats are over. Vote early and often, as they say. You know.
I don't know though. We went in to vote, they gave us this big, huge uniform with bulky stuff to wear when we went in.
Oh. Listen, we have to be thankful we still have free elections in this country.
So far.
So, yeah, it's just say for how long.
Okay. Everyone have a good day for the rest of the day, and we'll see you
Thanks.
next week.
You too. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank